We are so lucky today to have Sue Patten with us.
It's always good to be here.
Yes, and it's going to be an exciting show. She is going to show us spines with designs, and this is very exciting, very practical idea.
Yes, I love this idea. Now, I know that a lot of our viewers don't like to do as intense of quilting as I do, but for those special occasions or for that little pow or for people who can't travel both ways on the outside design, that's what this was created for.
Okay.
So the whole idea originally came from one of the books that I've just done, and it is called Adaptable Quilting Designs. I had to take a little peek there to remember what it was called. And what we're going to do is there are so many times where we spend hours and weeks and months agonizing over those square motifs.
Oh, yes.
Then we forget about those sashings. And I've found that over the last couple of the years, we've had our hands slapped so many times, you know, taking that baby quilt and putting 6 12-inch borders on it. So, of course, we don't make extra blocks. We just come up with new and easier ideas. So now we add 10,000 sashings.
That's right.
So what I want to do is I want to give our viewers a chance to really highlight those sashing areas and try to keep in mind we still have a stitch per square inch for that batting. So if you have a king-size quilt with one of those sashings that runs the whole 120, you can't just stitch it in the ditch.
No.
When you wash it, it is going to ball up and sag, and those hours and hours of work that you have put into making the rest of the quilt spectacular,
You have to put something in them.
you've got to treat them.
Well, good.
So we want them to look spectacular, but of course, if you're quilting with me, it's got to be quick, fun, and easy.
So let's get started with the sewing.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sneak in this bottom left-hand corner because that's where I like to sneak in. But when you're practicing, you're absolutely going to practice going up, over, down, and back so that we never have to turn the quilt. So I'm simply going to turn my machine on and very relaxed, I'm simply going to slide across the space that I want to fill. I'm going to come up. I'm going to do just a little bit of a whoosh at the top. That allows my brain to remember what I'm going to do next, especially if this is a really long sashing that goes all the way across the quilt. Now what I'm going to do is a stipple-ish little design that's just going to tack down my fabric. It's going to pull in any extra. I've spent so much time and effort to make sure that that ditch is perfect. I do not want whatever I'm putting inside of my sashing to push that fabric in any way, shape, or form over top of that beautiful ditch that I've worked so hard on, okay? I'm just going to work all the way down. Now remember, this could be anything. It could be tiny little feathers, tiny little bubbles, anything that you do best, but make sure that it is in a stipple-ish size. Now I'm just going to come up, bounce back, over, back. I'm trapping the extra fabric and tacking it down. Trapping the extra, tacking it down, and I'm just working my way between that ditch and that fancy spine to come all the way back up and fill the space in.
So you don't jump down to the spine, it's above the spine.
That's
so there's
right.
space between that design and the...
Absolutely. If I miss that spine once, that's a mistake. If I stay exactly a 1/4 inch, remember, we have a 1/4 inch hopping foot. It is an absolutely perfect cheater mark. So the second my 1/4 inch hopping foot hits any stitching that I've already placed down, I know it's time to go into the next section. I'm going to sneak right through the top, and then I'm going to work down the other side of my spine, pulling in any extra fabric that might be in there, pulling it away from the ditch, making it nice and intense. I love to have 3 degrees of texture. We work so hard at 3 degrees of color on our quilts, and then we take them to our favorite Longarmer, and they put 1 degree of quilt stitching across the whole piece. Well, then that just eliminates all that balance and texture that we've tried to create with the texture or with the color. So I like to have a stipple-ish area, a medium motif area, and what I call a foofy area, which would be your large, puffy, soft, cuddly area. So again, I'm just gonna work my way back up this spine. And remember, you can be half an inch away from that ditch. If you stitch even a single stitch over top of it, you need to stop, pick it out, and try again. Because you're gonna see that 6 blocks down and 4 blocks over in a snowstorm. Now I'm simply gonna sneak up and write out my ditch at that top design. I travel through my ditch, so I would then travel in my ditch, and yes, I free motion my stitch in the ditch. Nobody told me it was hard.
Goodness, you're really good at that.
You know, ignorance is bliss, and because no one told me it was hard, I had been a hand quilter for 10 years, don't tell anyone, but stitching in the ditch made as much sense to me as getting dressed before I went to the grocery store.
Of course.
So I'm just going to take now a little crescent moon, and I'm simply going to come up, and I'm going to alter the direction of that crescent moon, and I'm just going to work my way up. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be enclosed. This could be ribbon and lace.
So is this like the spine that you're putting in? This is the, instead of a straight line?
Instead of that boring, plain old, we've done it all day, every day on every quilt straight line, just adding a little bit of extra into that quilt.
Okay.
So again, I'm just going to very casually, very relaxed, work my way up into one of these little corner sections. Just sliding up and around, little tiny tweaks.
Going from the bottom corner then up to the top corner.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now I'm going to slide up because I need a chance for that brain of mine to go, where are you going and what are you doing next? And I'm simply going to start working my way back down that spine just as if it was a straight spine. The best part about the decorative spines is you never ever have to hit it. Remember, this can be any design that you do on a regular basis that you're already comfortable with. I always recommend to my students, instead of trying to tackle a new design and a new concept and a new way of traveling all at once when you get home from taking all those classes, simply apply what you already do best to that concept. So when you go home, I want you to practice just doing the spines with that feather that you've already mastered, or that swoop or that swirl that's already relayed in that brain where you don't even have to think about it.
So you don't have to be so stressed about
Absolutely.
learning something new.
Once you've tackled that spine and your muscle movement is just, you know, pegging it off like there's no problem, then go back to those handouts of all those fabulous teachers that you've learned from and start taking their design concepts and adding it to the new designs or the new sections or the new concept.
It's a good idea.
Don't stress yourself out. Now I'm just going to echo this side so that I can work all the way back up the spine. So for all of you who just agonize over doing that feather in 2 directions, you don't have to do that anymore. If you work best coming down the spine, simply echo all the way up and go down in the direction that you've already mastered. I will tell you, I firmly believe that it is not how we complete it, but that when it's completed, we like the end result. So just because one person stitches in a specific way, 1, 2, 3, if that doesn't work for you, try something different. Try and see which technique does work best for you and handle it that way. Okay?
That's really cute design.
Super simple, super fast. Okay? Okay, so the next one, we actually are going to draw a spine to follow. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to slide in and down. And now I'm going to do tiny little hearts on the top, just a little bump over back. So we're going to go bump over back, whoosh, bump over back, whoosh. And the little bump over back goes inside the whoosh.
I think that could be a new song, Sue.
It's fabulous. When I first started quilting, my children knew exactly what I was stitching out by the sounds that were coming from my stitching room. So it just helped me to remember the direction, to get the same flow, and to make everything sort of kind of the same size.
That's really cute.
That's
I can see that it
sweet.
takes more time to do this, so this is something that you would...
This is absolutely high-end custom, unless, again, you're only putting it in a couple different areas. You don't have to do every sashing in that king-size quilt with great intensity. You can choose just the tiny little sashing that's between the body of the quilt and the border. Or you could use these tiny little inside fancy designs on the inside of your large feather to extend how much stitching you can do inside those borders. So I'm going to do something nice and soft on the top, and then I'm going to do something nice and jagged and sharp on the bottom, because I love that contrast.
Yeah, that looks like a little zigzag or a little fern.
Yeah.
It's nice. Well, you have to move fast when you're in constant so that you don't get a lot of stitching in the holes.
Yes. As soon as you hesitate, then you're going to break thread or get a little knot on the back. So we're just going to work our way all the way up like this. And I'm just going to do a lazy man's feather, a little perfume on a pig. So it sort of kind of looks like a feather, but I'm just swooping down and then tacking it inside.
Did you say perfume on a pig?
Perfume on a pig. Not exactly precise, but pretty enough that we can get away with it. Okay, so in designs like this, you can really stretch out, really fill in those large borders. And remember, if I have a whole lot of sashings, I can do just that inside border on a small little 2-inch sashing, and then I can take that, fancy spine and put it inside of a really large feather in my borders. So I'm not overworking how much design concepts I'm putting in there. I'm using little tiny pieces of things I've already mastered to fill specific spaces in all different sizes on the quilt.
That's terrific.
So I'm just going to throw a little square in here. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to kind of look like one of my blocks that have been pieced together. And now I'm just going to fill in the space. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to slide around and I'm going to come down and oh, here comes that fancy spine. And I'm going to jump. Did you see the jump there?
Yes, cross the line there.
Now I'm going to come back up and I'm going to mark this space too, making sure that it's not exactly the same because I want to be consistently inconsistent. Jump back over this way. Now I'm simply going to work whatever design I want. Watch this.
Oh, you just switched again.
I
Great.
just jump right through. Now I'm going to come down and do some nice tight sectioning in here. Now if I had a block that wasn't fitting quite right, do you see how easy it is now for me to manipulate the fabric to lie flat? I'm going to jump right through there, come back down here, slide in, and off I go. So using the same techniques as we use with spines with designs for the sashings, you can then go into your blocks and do your spines with designs to fit into a block. Here's a little heart that we've done. Let's break it down. It has a simple questionable question mark on this side and just a half a question mark on this side. Nice, that perfume on a pig. Feather around there for those who like to have those hearts on the quilts. And there's some examples as well for the triangle sections on your quilt. And again, just place your spine and then fill in the area around it and you're good to go.
Sue, you have shown us today some really stressless techniques that make it so much funner to quilt.
It's got to be fun, or why are we doing it?
That's right. So thank you so much.
Thanks for
and
having
you're always
me.
fun when we come.
I'll have to come back.